Welcome back to Writing the Pine, everybody. This is our review of Game 10. It's already been 10 games of the 2020-21 Chicago Blackhawks season. Tonight, the Blackhawks picked up their third victory of the season, 3-1 over the Columbus Blue Jackets, and improved to a record of 3-4-3 on the season. But before we get to the review, please do me a really big favor and like and subscribe to the channel if you have not done so already. And a quick shout out to those dear listeners over in Finland who have been listening to us. We've seen you in the analytics. Thanks for checking out the channel. I'm sure you're probably big Kevin Lankinen fans, so we greatly appreciate you tuning in to the reviews. And please comment down below, interact with us, let us know what you thought about the game tonight, or the season in general, any particular players you want to talk about. So yeah. And before I bring Joe on, just a heads up, for those of you that like Kyle going on rants, there will be a Wyatt Kalanick organizational coaching staff rant at the end of the review. So if you want to stick around and listen to that, feel free. And with that, as I said, I'm joined once again by Chai sports fan Joe. Joe, how you doing tonight?
Well, Kyle, hey, it's a win, so I'm happy. Any time after a win, I'm always happy. So, but yeah, everybody, get your popcorn for this rant because I think it's going to be pretty entertaining. I'm looking forward to that too.
Yeah, so I have pretty much all good things to say tonight, except for maybe, well, three players. So I got three players, but let's stick with the positives. So to start, Reese Johnson made his debut tonight, NHL debut.
And he looked good.
Yes, he did look good. And he brought something that they really haven't had all year, and that was physicality, just something that I like to see. He had 7 hits tonight in 11 minutes, just under 11 minutes. So that was a definite noticeable trend. I think at this rate, assuming that somebody else draws back into the lineup at the forward level, I'm going to run with the assumption that Johnson's probably going to stay and Highmore's probably going to come out. That's not really saying Highmore played bad. He didn't. I just think that added physicality that Johnson brings, especially with the 7 hits tonight, was obviously noticeable. I think that's something that the team lacks. So congratulations to him on his first game. Definitely a good showing.
Do you think then that fourth line, once Carpenter comes back, is going to be Camp, Carpenter, and Johnson going forward?
It's potentially, see, so this is, this is the amazing thing about this season is I don't know, because you've got Carpenter, you've got Walmart, you've got DeBrinket. Those 3 guys are all, DeBrinket has already been out a week, so he should be coming back within the next week or so, maybe the
Yeah, I
next.
think if I did the math right, I think they're required to miss, what is it, 2 weeks? So I think
Yeah.
if you look on the schedule, they should be back, I think, for the game against, is it Dallas? I think they'll miss these 2 games against the Hurricanes coming up, but they should be able to come back the game Super Bowl Sunday against Dallas.
Yeah, it's definitely going to be interesting because it's not just a matter of bringing Highmore out and keeping Johnson in, just for say DeBrinket, because you've got Walmart, you've got DeBrinket, you've got who's the other forward that just went out? I'm blanking on the name, but anyway, I believe there's 3 forwards out that are in COVID protocol that would. I don't know who I'm forgetting. Carpenter, DeBrinket, and Walmart. Yeah,
Yeah, Walmart.
yeah. Yeah. So, I mean they weren't playing Walmart to begin with. So maybe they leave him out, but they still gotta work in Carpenter unless they leave Carpenter out. I mean, I don't know.
I wouldn't. I mean, the way Carpenter's played, it'd be really hard, I think, to leave him out of the lineup.
So who would you take Soderbergh out then?
Maybe, yeah.
I think he's probably the most likely. It would either
Right.
be him or
I mean, yeah. I like that, especially Carpenter. The chemistry on that fourth line, really, whoever's been on it they've really clicked. So, but yeah, no, I don't think you can take Carpenter out of the fourth line.
Yeah, so I mean that's definitely a nice, pleasant development. We're seeing development across the board. Phillip Kurashev got the
I was
Hawks
going to say, what did you think of the Kurashev on the top line between Janmark and Kane?
It was an interesting look. I'm still wanting to see Suter with Kane and Strome before I really I mean, I don't know. Somebody had mentioned that we hadn't seen Kubalik, Strome, and Kane, but we have. That's the top power play unit, at least the last few games since DeBrinket's been out. But yeah, I thought it looked good. It's hard to say if I really like Kurashev there. I mean, obviously it's good for him and his development, but he's just so raw. Like, there were a couple times I think that tonight where it was noticeable. Like even well, I guess it's not just Kurashev, right? So what was it? The at the end of the game, Keith was trying to set Suter up with his second goal of the game on the empty net, and Suter just I don't know if it was miscommunication or just thought that Keith was gonna slap shot that in there, but he turned it into a shot pass kind of thing, and Suter just wasn't ready for it. So maybe that's just both of them coming with time. The They made a kind of a big deal out of it online. I think it was Dietz. I think it was Dietz that said Suter had been benched.
Really?
Yeah, for about half of the third period, and then he obviously scored when he got back on the ice. His Holiness Pius Suter the first with his third of the season, um, with a horrible goal by Merzlinkins to give up.
Yeah, I mean, that's why I said the two critical mistakes he made were we capitalized on both of them. So
I would not want to be Elvis in that locker room with John Tortorella tonight.
Well, right, and I think he knows that too because and his reaction to when Kane put the one in behind him. I mean, you knew he was pretty pissed. So
yeah. But yeah, so back to the Kurashev. Kurashev opened the scoring with a great pass from Patrick Kane, and Janmark picked up the secondary assist on that goal. And yeah, it was his third of the season. I hadn't really been paying much attention to this, but Kurashev and Pius are both right up there in terms of rookie scoring. And then obviously the biggest, brightest star on this team, probably Kevin Lankinen, is putting up Vezina caliber numbers right now. If he continues to play like this, I mean, Jesus.
yeah, it's his net to lose, no doubt about it at this point. So
Yeah, so I mean, I still don't know what they're gonna do though. Like it seems like they want to keep getting Subban in there. I think Delia is kind of done at this point. Seems like, which is unfortunate, but you know, it's what happens when you
yeah,
get.
it is, and I mean, it is weird. Like, obviously in a season like we're having, with all the protocols and everything. But I mean, if your goal is to win games, which that seems to be the goal for pretty much every NHL team, um, you got to ride your hot goaltender, man. And I think at this point, unless there's a set of a back to back, where you got to obviously, it's really hard for a goaltender to play back to back games. You got to ride Lankinen, and as long as we got days off in between games, I think, like I said, I think it's his net to lose.
Yeah, I think so. I don't think there's any going back now. I think just the question is what do you do with Delia? I mean, it, it might be better. You might be better off sending Delia to Rockford if you can get him to clear waivers and bringing up either Scott Darling or Matt Tompkins to sit on the taxi squad.
I mean, yeah, I wouldn't. Do you see? I mean, I don't see any team because Delia doesn't really have much of a track record. So I don't. I wouldn't think a team would pick him up on waivers, but I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. It's just the question is, do you want to risk it? I think maybe with the AHL starting up, you'll see a lot more guys getting set down. So that's potentially an option. I because you just like he hasn't played in 2 weeks now, and like you just don't want him sitting around. So and Subban's dressed literally every game. Even when Delia was playing, Subban was the backup. So it definitely doesn't seem like Subban's going anywhere. Um, that would be, I think, a development if somehow Delia became the normal backup to Lankinen, which I do think probably next season he will be. Once we get out of hopefully if we're out of COVID by this coming October.
Right.
But yeah, I don't know what they've got to do something because you don't want Delia sitting. I don't think any longer than necessary. So we'll see what happens there. Offensively, I think we've kind of covered everything. I mean, Kane picked up his fourth of the season with an assist from Kurashev, basically almost the exact same play that Pius scored his goal on. Merzlinkins just wandering around behind the nets, trying to play the puck and then getting caught. And, Kurashev's back there, steals it from him and just passes it right to Kane, who's right above the red line, and it's empty net goal for Kane. I think Puce's goal, I think, was a little bit harder to score than Kane's was because Suter was all the way in the corner, and then, um, I think the angle was harder.
Yeah, Suter had a crazy angle to shoot that, but kind of reminded me of the Taves goal against the Ducks, and I think what was it in the 2015 conference final where
Yeah,
I
I
think
tell you what, man, I think out of all of the series that the Hawks played during their dynasty, I think that series was the best. Like between roller coaster, two great teams just battling it out. What was that one game against them that went like three overtimes? I think that was the game Shaw had the infamous was it
yeah,
like
that was I think that was the second game because yeah, Kruger scored and yeah, triple. I think that was the longest. They said that was the longest game in Blackhawks history.
yeah. Oh, in the playoffs anyway, I think.
Yeah, I don't know if it was overall, but
Well, I would think it would have to be because I don't imagine they had, you know,
but really after with Suter, I mean he'd been pretty quiet since his hat trick game against the Red Wings, and I know he was moved to the second line in this game with Kubalik and Strome, but I think they said he eventually dropped to the third, and on his first shift of the third period, that's when he scored the goal. So it was good. It must be pretty nice to
so
get him back on the score sheet.
I think it was Dietz. I said they didn't drop him, they sat him, and Hagel had moved up to the second line.
Oh, okay.
And then as you said, I didn't see him out there, I guess, with the third line. I don't know if that's what he was out there with when he scored, because it was unassisted and my memory's not that great. But I mean, he played 13 minutes, so
Yeah.
he played about what he normally does, just a couple minutes under. And with being kind of pushed off Kane's line, you'd probably see that happening. Um,
And then talking about the power play too. I mean, we didn't score. I mean, we went 0 for 2, but I mean, we had a lot of chances. I think we had 6 shots on goal and had 4 scoring chances, but we just couldn't, put one in the back of the net. But I mean, it was still nice to see the power play kind of still clicking, even though they didn't get a power play goal tonight.
Yeah, I think that's my one gripe with a forward is Kubalik again. One shot on goal tonight. They lowered his minutes by about 4 minutes tonight. He got 3 minutes on the power play. That's one shot on goal is just not enough from him. He also took a penalty. There was another, I don't remember what period it was. I think it was the second period. I think the Hawks were on the power play, and that's why he was out there. And Columbus had carried the puck into the Hawks' end to kill the penalty, and there were two players, and one on either side of the circle, on each circle, and Kubalik just got like caught flat-footed, and I think they took he didn't know what to do. Like, I don't know if he's not very good skating backwards or what it is, but that's something I've noticed too, is he's not very good in his own end. So, I like the Hawks just need more from him. So again, I brought this up last podcast. We're 10 games into the season now. Kubalik has 2 goals, and both goals came in one game. So there's been 9 games now where he has not found the back of the net. And Pat Foley brought it up during the broadcast, which I kind of rolled my eyes at, which was, oh, Kubalik's got 6 points in the last 6 games. Yeah, well, we're not paying Kubalik to get secondary assists. We're paying Kubalik to put the puck in the net. Because if he would put the puck in the net, that changes the dynamic of this team. Because right now, when we've been talking about it, tonight obviously was a great thing. So I don't want to like poo-poo tonight's win, but we need offense, right? And when he's not contributing anything, and then he's making, I don't know if you want to call it lackadaisical or just, not.
Yeah, and again, I think it's got maybe a lot to do with who he's playing with, and I mean, I hate to use that, but maybe once DeBrincat is able to come back, and maybe that could help if he gets on a line with him. I don't know if he will or not, but um, again, I think it's just the absence of our top offensive guys are, but I don't want to use that because you still see Kane is still producing, but Kane is
Well, yeah, but what I'm not suggesting Kubalik needs to score like Kane, but
right.
like, he needs to be. I mean, I guess he's playing similar to what you for a $3.7 million player. He's playing about probably what that's worth, but you know, my problem is all I've heard for all off season and all last year was how great Kubalik is. He scored 30 goals in a shortened season. He's Calder Trophy finalist, all this stuff. Give him he's the $6 million man, according to John Dietz. Give him all, throw the money at him. And it's like, I'm not seeing that $6 million 30 goal scorer player right now. I mean, we're basically a fifth through this shortened season, and he has 2 goals and one of them a power play goal, and they both came in the same game. I mean, like, he just has to be better. I mean, even if it's just consistency, because like I've brought this up too, he's done this before, like last year. Like, he'd go 10, 12 games with maybe 1 goal, 2 goals, and then he'd have 6 goals in like 3 games. And then we'd hit another lull, and then he'd have 5 goals in 8 games, or he'd go through a stretch like that. And it's like, that's all well and dandy, and it's great to pad the stats, but if you're an elite level player, you need to do that consistently, because if a team's going to pay you 6 million plus a year in a cap world, like, you have to produce every
Right.
night.
I agree, and I think it's more, again, I don't. Maybe it's just like I said, it's having all these guys. His supporting, let's call him. I don't even want to call him that, but there's his supporting cast of the Taves of the world, the Docs of the world, the Nylanders of the world, the DeBrincats of the world, guys that know how to get him the puck and make things happen in the offensive zone to give him more opportunities to score. So now let's just say, okay, we at this point we know Taves probably likely isn't coming back. If something happens, where he's done with hockey, okay. But if Taves comes back, say in 2020, 2022 or 2021, 2022, and we get all the majority of these guys healthy, Doc, Nylander, and then Kubalik starts producing again, then I think we'll know. It was just, hey, the supporting cast just wasn't there for him to put the puck in the net. But if we still see, I think I'd be more alarmed if we saw this kind of production out of Kubalik with all of our top offensive guys.
Well, not to cut you off, but I think I'd reverse that. So I think Kubalik is and I made it. I called him the complementary piece.
Mm-hmm.
So like last year, he complemented Sod and Taves, right? So
Right.
they did the work, and he got the goals, right? Or they made the plays, he put it in the net.
Right.
That's how I view him. So he's not like the guy that's going to create offensively. He's the finisher kind of deal. Kind of like DeBrincat in a lot of ways, although I think DeBrincat has a little bit more finesse and skill than Kubalik does.
Right.
But Kubalik has a better shot. So, it's give and take. But I think they're kind of a similar player in that sense. But yeah, and again, like I'm not trying to shit on him, but like when you're with the roster as it is, with everybody that's out, you need him to contribute more. And even it's not even just that he's not scoring. One shot, like, and you played 3 minutes on the power play. That's just it's not
Right. Well, and then how many attempts? I guess how many shot attempts did he have? Does it say that? I mean, because I know that wasn't there like 2 or 3?
Yeah, he had a couple blocked. I know, but
or missed the net. So
yeah,
but
so I'm gonna sound. This is gonna sound weird. And I'm glad you brought up Doc and Taves coming back. So, and I think they even was it Foley? Somebody brought it up where if Doc and Taves had been on this team right now, maybe it was some other podcaster I was listening to. It could have been. If you assume Kurashev's on the team, Suter's on the team, the usual suspects, right, that have kind of become shining stars in this horrible season. Is this team really that far away with Doc? Assuming Doc comes in, is, picks up where he left off, continues to develop, Taves is Taves, you kind of got to like what you see.
Oh, yeah, no, I agree. I think I think we are talking a little bit of a different scenario if we have, if the the guys that are in COVID protocol right now aren't in COVID protocol, and if the guys that are hurt, especially, Taves, Doc, DeBrincat's in COVID, but
Nylander.
Taves, Doc, and Nylander aren't hurt and they're playing. I mean, I think, who knows, and especially the way Lankinen is playing right now, we might have, instead of 3 wins in what, three regulation wins in 10 games, right?
Yeah, well, you probably win the two of the. So
I'd say, yeah.
Lankinen's 3-1-2, right? Is that what he is?
Yeah.
Yeah. So you probably win one of the. Well, you probably win the game they lost. Or no, has he lost? Yeah, because the game against Columbus that was a loss in regulation,
Right.
and then he's.
Who knows, the two games against the Predators? I mean, one in overtime, one in a shootout.
Yeah. Okay. So yeah, you probably win that game that he was playing in Nashville, and maybe you even win the game that Subban was playing. I don't think they win the game in Florida that went to overtime.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah, we don't know, but who knows?
Yeah.
But I would say you add, if all's well that ends well, you have all those guys available. I'd say we're sitting with at least 5 wins right now, maybe 6 instead of 3. That's just my opinion, but I don't know. We'll never
I'd probably go 5.
know.
For sure. But I guess the point that I was making, so I knew this team wasn't far away from being competitive again, so I had them at 2 years away. But honestly, they might just be one. So that, and I want to talk about the defense. That's why I want to bring this up. So that changes, I think, if you're Bowman and the front office, what you do at the draft. Because if you really believe that, and a lot's going to depend, obviously, on how we finish the season. But if you believe that you're only one player away, even though this draft is heavily defense, at least in the first 10 picks, I think you got to go with a forward. Because if you are just one player away or 1 year away, and you can take the first forward in the draft, because it looks like at least maybe the top two picks might be defensemen.
Well, the only thing with that though is at this point you do have to start finding your replay. I mean, I think we found Duncan Keith's replacement in. Would you say that's Ian Mitchell?
Yeah, dude, but I don't think Duncan Keith's retiring at the end of this deal.
No, but I'm just saying, Keith is up there in age, and you got to start, finding the next, the next.
I mean, that's yeah, but Keith's got 3 years left, including this one on his contract, and I think he plays at least 2 years after his deal's up. So that's 5 years, including this year. So I don't think that's as pressing of an issue as it seems.
Well, right, but I'm just saying, I don't think you're going to see Keith, play. Maybe I'm wrong, but you're not going to see Keith play. I don't think you're going to see Keith play top
Well,
minutes.
no, you're not going to see him that, but you can, as the kids develop, you can lower his ice time.
Right.
And
but I'm just saying now you got to find somebody to probably replace Brent Seabrook. But like you said, eventually, even though Keith's got 2 years after this one left on his deal, you got to find somebody that's going to step into like what his role was from 2010 to 2015.
I already, like you said, I think that's Mitchell.
Right.
So Mitchell was a +3 tonight, and he played almost 16 minutes. So I think
Right.
tonight was, I think, his top game. And I looked at it earlier because clap back to the dumbass Buffalo Sabre fan that tried to tweet at me on a comment from like literally 6 fucking months ago. Sorry, I'm swearing if you got kids listening, but it just pissed me off because we were, again, it's me defending, I think, Alex Nylander and that trade with Yoki Haru. I don't remember exactly how it went, but I had said that both Ian Mitchell and Henry Jokiharju were better than Adam Boqvist. And I think the gist of it is that Boqvist was the best defensive prospect the Hawks had. And I still maintain that. Defensively, Jokiharju is a better defenseman than Adam Boqvist, and so is Ian Mitchell. I think we've seen that.
Right.
Part of the rant I'm going to go on later is all about Ian Mitchell, about the young defense. But like, I think Ian Mitchell's a guy that, as he progresses, is going to definitely kind of take over some of those minutes.
So I guess because instead I'm just saying to eventually replace Duncan Keith, Brent Seabrook, and Calvin DeHaan.
I think they've already got Seabrook replaced. Like I think that's Connor Murphy at this point. Like, like.
How old is Murphy? Is he 28 or 29?
I believe he's 27.
Oh, so he's okay. He's younger than that. So okay. I mean, so you probably figure it with defensemen. I would say you've got what till you're 30, 31 is kind of when your production starts to decline. Typically.
Yeah. So let me see here. I think he will. Murphy will turn 28 in March.
Okay. So realistically, then you got probably at least 2 to 3 more good years out of Murphy. And, Mitch, you got Mitchell. And then, if Boqvist pans out, and then who else? Who would you think?
They've got to figure. So you've got to figure out what you're doing. DeHaan is not a part of this team's future.
Well, no.
And he was downright awful again tonight. But you got to figure out what you're doing with Sidorov. So,
I mean, I don't see him being a part of this team's future either. Maybe I'm wrong, but I don't know.
well, I think the question is do you keep him around as like a third pair? So, but if Duncan Keith's your other guy and your third pair, you probably don't want him paired with Sidorov. I don't know, because Zadorov did not have a good game tonight either.
No, and it's like Jesus. Every game, it's like he always like befuddles himself and just either turns the puck over or gets his pocket picked, and it's always it's like 9 times out of 10 it seems like it always leads to either a great chance or even a goal. So
I guess my point is so we've already pent for the future. Let's just say for the next 5 years. I don't see Keith leaving. I think he resigns. I think he plays till he's 42, 43, kind of like Zdeno Chara, if you will. The guy's a freak. I mean,
well, right, and that's why I said Duncan Keith is built different because he's in such great shape.
So you got him, you got Murphy, and Mitchell, and then Boquist. So that's 4 guys right there if Boquist turns out. And then we've got Nick Bodan, who I think's played fairly well. Alex Vlasic, who hasn't even showed up yet. They've got that Krudel kid who they drafted this year, who's in Rockford right now because of the Canadian, I think it's Canadian juniors being shut down. So they're getting away with him developing there. That's a perk, I guess. But you still got Carlson around. And then, as my rant's going to dictate, Wyatt Kalynuk, who's 23. We're 10 games into the season now, and he hasn't played yet. This is a guy that was the captain of Wisconsin last year, was the top, arguably, sought after NCAA free agent, and was one of the best power play quarterbacking defensemen in the NCAA last year. And he hasn't played yet. And he's one of your top prospects. So figuratively speaking, assuming Boquist is around, you got to find 2 defensemen. And you've got Bodan, Vlasic, and Kalynuk. Those are 3 prospects. And then you've got Alec Regula, too, who is only 20, who outscored Bowen Byram last year. Now we'll see.
That's why you wonder. I mean, obviously the Blackhawks, they're not going to keep every one of these guys. So
no, but you only need 2 out of those 4 to work.
Right. Is Bowman going to then use these other guys as trade leverage or trade chips or something?
Well, probably, but I think, you got to figure out what they are. And with Kalynuk being 23, you want to play him. And if not, then as I'll get into later, he needs to go to Rockford. But I guess my point being, so you've got, assuming Mitchell's here, Murphy's here, Keith is here, and Boquist are here. To find the last 2 guys, you got those 4, Vlasic, Regula, Bodan, and then Kalynuk. So even let's just say only one of the 4 work out, right? One of those guys works. Well, now you only need to go get 1 guy, and he it can be like a Slater Cuckoo or somebody. It doesn't necessarily have to be a big guy. You can go and get that in free agency. So I guess from my position, I'm not like, if I'm Bowman and I think I'm a year away, or maybe I'm going to be, let's say, competitive next year, and then maybe after next year I'm ready to go with my development, I'm not wasting any more high-end draft picks on defensemen, especially if I've got a top 10 pick this year, I think, because chances are you're not going to be in the top 10 next year if what we're seeing right now stays as is. I don't think. You add Doc, Nylander, Taves, all them back, you're probably not going to be this bad. So, and assuming Lankinen is here,
barring injuries.
Right. So, and you're going to have cap space. Smith's $3.5 million will be gone. Sod's $1 million that you retained's gone. That's already $4.5 million then
That's what I said. When do you think the Blackhawks become kind of those spenders again, like in the off season? Do you feel like it's going to be after this
well, I
season?
think you have to look. So again, you have to figure out where you're at the end of this season. So is is Kurashev real, or is he a pretender? Is Kubalik a pretender? So if we go another 40 games and Kubalik's only got 10 goals, he's probably not a guy you want to keep around.
Well, and then we got. I mean, at least at the bright side, he's only what? He's on a 2-year deal.
Right. So, but
So you got this year, and then you got next year. So
right. So
and
you got to see what he is. You got to determine if Strome's going to stick. Does Suter
which it seems
continue to
like he is.
play?
Seems like Strom will be a part of this future. I think the
Yeah,
way.
most likely.
So
But obviously, how much money is he going to want? Because he's up the same year as Kubalik. Um, does DeBrinket turn it around? Because I think we discussed last show. If you're going to keep DeBrinket, you're going to have to pay him $9 million, and I don't know if you're going to do that. But I mean, we'll see.
yeah.
So I think you have to look at where the team is, assuming hopefully you have an answer as to what's going on there. And then obviously Doc is going to be back, and assuming Nylander's not taken by Seattle, he'll be back. So assuming your offense is going to get better, to me, I think I'm taking a forward that can score. I'm not
Basically,
maybe.
you got 20, what is it, 21 million, 10 and a half each tied into Taves and Kane. So that's where obviously you have to work around for the next, 3 years. So, because they're on the books for if there's 3 more
Yeah,
years.
well, 2 years, because this is one of the 3 years.
Oh, okay. So,
But I don't. Taves obviously is probably going to drop. I don't think he'll get the same contract. Kane might get more, than what he's making now, if he continues to play as he is, depending on what the salary cap does. So
mhm.
that's something to keep in mind too. But um, they're gonna have. I guess my point is they're gonna have money. They've got a shit ton of defensive prospects. There's no point, I think, at this point, based on what I'm seeing with this roster, that they should, if they're in the top 10 again, take another defenseman. Obviously, you've got Lucas Reichel too, floundering away somewhere in Europe, going to come over soon in a year or two, from this year's first round draft, or first round of the draft. So, and he's a forward. Hopefully he contributes. Maybe he will, maybe he won't. Um,
But based on, I mean, like I said, I think I trust the Blackhawks European scouts more than I trust anyone else. I mean, I give a lot of credit to them because they've found a lot of these good diamonds in the rough, if you want to call them that, to play here. I mean, they found Panarin, Kurashev, Suter. I mean, I give them credit. They Kubalik. I mean, I know you're not the biggest fan of Kubalik, but I'll give them last year and say it's Kubalik. But hey, to
well, I
even
don't.
throw that
So
before,
I
but
don't think he's a bad player. I guess my issue is that the media, and I think this is why the fans are, circle jerking for him, is that he's just been propped up, and it's not fair to him either. It's not fair to him to put all these expectations on him when he's not that kind of a player. I mean, he's not Patrick Kane. It's the same thing with Alex DeBrincat. So he got his big contract extension last year, and then he just was drowning. And that seems, at least so far this year, like he's kind of coming back into form. But you know, Kubalik's got arguably the best shot on the team. I'd still probably give it to Kane, but maybe hardest shot you give to Kubalik, something along those lines. But he's not a full, complete elite offensive player.
right,
Just he's. I don't want to even compare him to Sharp, but he's kind of like what Sharp was to or an Andrew Ladd type of player to the old dynasty teams, where he's not the guy, but he's a guy that can put the puck in the net
right.
occasionally. So
But
that's just my issue. Is that
no, right. And like I said, I give the Blackhawks European scouts a lot of credit because they have found a lot of guys to really come in and fit.
Kevin Lankinen?
Yeah, I mean, exactly. So, they know how to scout European players. So that's what makes me believe that Reichel could be an impact player for this team. I mean, I think they were really. It seemed like, I don't know if you watched those on the clock when the Blackhawks had those programs. It seemed like they were pretty ecstatic that Reichel fell to them. So,
So I think they wanted Gooley, the defenseman, but I assume they probably still liked Reichel. But I agree. If you guys have not seen, because they do a shit job of promoting these, I feel like. Because I don't know many people. I don't. Maybe you do, Joe, but like I don't really spend that much time on the Blackhawks website. I think most people are on Facebook, Twitter, social media, and that's where they get most of their stuff.
yeah.
Um,
Yeah, I kind of go on it every now and then, but not as much as probably I should. So
Yeah, so like I don't. They might tweet it out from their Twitter. Like I barely even pay attention to their main Twitter feed. Like I'm usually paying attention to, the Athletic, Elliot Friedman, Darren Dreger, and the local kind of beat guys to get most of my news. Um, so I guess I don't pay much attention to it. But like if you haven't watched On the Clock, uh, please go do that. It's on their YouTube channel, I believe. Um, and it's not just, they've been doing it, I believe, since Yoki Haru.
yeah, it's been a couple years they've done.
Yeah, like 3 years, I think. So you can watch this year's, you can see when they took Kirby, and then I think Yoki, and then Boquist, I guess, too, if they've been doing it that long. But so 4 years, but it's a great thing. And I think, anybody that starts an NHL team should take some notes on that, because I think the production value of that, uh, and the added content and value in that, I think is great for NHL clubs, which again, we'll have to do a business side of the game one of these days. But yeah, so on the defense tonight, it's weird because it's the veterans that I have problems with. Like I thought Zadorov was shitty. I thought Dahan was even worse than Zadorov. I mean, I don't know what it is with Dahan, but he keeps getting like flat-footed. And I think they saw on the first goal tonight, they're like, well, he could have taken a holding penalty, but instead he just let him go around him. And it's like, well, there's the thing is good penalties. I don't know if
Yeah, no, I agree. I think you should. It's like you rather, instead of letting the guy go right around you. I mean, yeah, just at that point, take the penalty, take your chances with your kill. Hopefully, you can kill it off. But yeah, instead of letting the guy go right around you, and then it leads to a goal anyway. At that point, that's why I said just take the penalty if you have to.
yeah, I don't know what his thinking was there, but he's gotten caught like that a couple times, and it's he's always along the boards too, and he just gets undressed. Um, so they've got to figure that out because they can't be like when you go up against a better team. I'm not saying Columbus isn't a good team, but you start going up against Tampa, you go up against Vegas, St. Louis, Colorado, you're gonna get killed if your veterans are doing that. Interestingly, Carlson only played 7.5 minutes tonight. So I know he took a shot, I believe, to the knee. So I'm wondering if he's injured.
I know. Well, he did go to the locker room. I think they said to get checked out, but he did come back into the game. So um, I don't know if he's okay or if they're just gonna reevaluate him. But they said yeah he returned later in the period, which was a good sign. Otherwise, he would have been stuck. We would have been stuck playing with 5 defensemen for pretty much the whole game. But they said his status going forward is unclear. But he did not take a shift in the third period, so that's kind of a little alarming there too.
Yeah, okay. Well, I guess that's probably a good lead into my rant. But we'll kind of wrap this up first. So, um, just looking at the stats, we've talked about Reese Johnson having a good game. Obviously, Kurashev and Suter, His Holiness Pius Suter getting on the board. Um, the Swiss kid Phillip Kurashev getting a goal and an assist. Yanmark again picking up a secondary. I, do you trade Yanmark? Like, can they
Yeah, I
afford
mean,
to do that now?
I think you kind of at the maybe see what you can get for him. If you can get a nice haul for him, yeah, I would. So I don't want to see him go because I like the way he's played, but
Yeah, he's a great player.
yeah, I mean on a 1 year deal, I would think you gotta see what you can get for him. If you could get some draft stock and
And then
future
maybe get him
picks,
back in the off
yeah,
season.
maybe who knows. But I would definitely, yeah, I would think if the Hawks aren't in playoff contention, I think you definitely have to trade him.
Yeah, he's probably Soderbergh at this point's not going to be an asset. I don't think.
Right.
Um, Walmart hasn't played in 2 weeks, obviously, because he was scratched and then COVID. So I don't know what you do with him if he even will have any value. Granted, we're still early here, but
Do you think is Zadorov a possibility to be traded or no?
no, I think if they move a defenseman, it's probably DeHaan. Like if
Okay.
they're out of the playoffs and they're selling, because let's face it, if they're not out of the playoff hunt, I don't think they sell.
No, right.
So if you're selling, I think because they just acquired Zadorov, so I don't think they move him. And he's 6'6". He's got something they don't have.
I'm just saying, as far as players that can get you the more value in return.
I think they moved DeHaan, and I think DeHaan probably even has more value, to be honest,
Okay.
which is saying something. But I think he's pictured. I think Zadorov is still pictured as a third pair defenseman, who the Blackhawks are trying to turn into a top four, similar to kind of Zdeno Chara when he was kind of dealt from the Islanders to Ottawa. He kind of solidified himself, and then obviously, really became a star in Boston. But a big hulking defenseman like that, I think that's what they're trying to do. He did have 6 hits tonight, so I will give him that
Right.
in his 20 minutes of.
Yeah, I think like you said, Janmark, Dahan, those guys are probably going to give you a lot of nice value if you're not in contention for a playoff spot to get a nice return from teams that are if you're going to trade them.
Yeah. So um, we kind of went over pretty heavily the defense. Kevin Lankinen, obviously, again, stopped 32 of 33 shots for a 970 save percentage. I I think we were off air when you said this. What was it that they tweeted out what he was over the last 5 games? Like 100 and
I think he stopped. Let me check here what it was.
but I think, if he continues to play as he is, he's going to be in the Vezina conversation, and probably if he continues to play like this, and especially if the Hawks are in the playoff conversation, he's probably going to win the Calder if he continues playing like this. And I was thinking about this. I didn't look it up, but who's the last goalie to win the Calder? I don't think Carter Hart won it. So maybe he did, but I don't think he did. Let me look it up. Calder Hart. Carter Trophy winners. Yeah, it wasn't Hart. So it was Makar, Pedersen, Barzell, Matthews, Panarin, Steve Mason. Was he a goalie? I think he was,
Yeah.
wasn't he? Yeah. So he was the last goalie to win it, and that was all the way back in 2009. So That would be quite an accomplishment if Lankinen can pull that out.
Yeah, in his last 5 starts here, Lankinen has stopped 153 of 160 shots for a 956 save percentage.
That is unheard of. And it's
Yeah,
like, obviously, 2 of those are against Detroit, but the
right.
other 3 are
He's
Nashville.
3-1-2 with a 1.97 goals against average and a 937 save percentage.
I do know this. So for goalies, I think that have played a minimum of 5 games, Lankinen is tied for number 1 for save percentage and second in goals against. And I believe it's Grubar with Colorado who's ahead on goals against. But it's hard to really give goals against average to a goalie because that's kind of more of a defensive aspect of stat. I think really you want to look at save percentage. And what was it, 958?
956.
956. That's insane.
Yeah.
Usually, if you're above 920, you're in a Vezina conversation. So, Jesus Christ. Like,
Yeah, that's why I said it's his net to lose. So
aren't you all glad we didn't re-sign Crawford now?
yeah, it's crazy.
So I don't even who's the next game against Carolina on Tuesday?
Yeah, we got Carolina coming in town.
Yeah, okay. So previewing that, let's just assume at this point Lankinen starts. I think we'd agree with that. Assuming, do you make any lineup changes?
No, I mean, no. I mean, not right now. You coming off a win. It seemed like what they had out there worked tonight. So
Well, maybe you get to lead into my rant here. Maybe you take Carlson out for Kalanick,
right.
especially since he's injured, or at least he might appear to be injured. We'll wait and see on that. But to wrap up the game, the Hawks pick up a 3-1 victory over the Columbus Blue Jackets. They improved to 3-4-3 on the season. And yeah, now if you want to stick around and hear me rant on Wyatt Kalanick, let's enjoy it. So, if you have been listening to this podcast, you know by now that I've been pretty hell bent on getting Wyatt Kalanick into a game. I don't know what in the hell Stan Bowman and I guess even more so Jeremy Colleton are doing with this kid. Because as I said earlier, we're talking about the former captain of Wisconsin last year. So he's got leadership qualities. He's 23 years old, so he's not Nick Bodan. He's not 20 years old. He's not Adam Boquist. This is a guy that's further along in development, one would hope. And if you're going to keep him, you kind of need to know what he is at this point because you can't develop him much longer at 23. Same kind of deal with Carlson, who's already had a couple years of development. And he was one of the top NCAA free agents. And you had, he was one of the top quarterback defensemen in NCAA hockey last year on the power play. And what is amazing about that, so that he hasn't played yet. So the first 4 games of the season, 5 games, there is no question, I don't think, from anybody that Adam Boquist, especially for a stretch of about 3 games, played like absolute dog shit. And you can't tell me that he didn't deserve to be scratched for at least 1 game. Nor can you argue that 1 game of him sitting would have hurt his development. If anything, it would have made him more accountable, or it should have made him more accountable. And since Boquist is supposed to be this quarterbacking specialist on the power play, why not sit him for a game and bring in Kalanick and see how he does in that role? Aside from that, this is nothing against. I want to make it very clear. I'm not suggesting that Kalanick is better than Bodan, that he's better than Carlson, or that he's better than Mitchell or even Boquist. But at this point, the whole purpose of this season is to be developing young players. We just played 2 games with 7 defensemen, and Kalanick did not get into the lineup. We saw Bodan twice. We've seen Carlson now. I think tonight was his 3rd game, and he may be injured, so potentially maybe we'll finally get Kalanick into the lineup. However, organizationally, if it seems like Colleton just doesn't like this kid, because it was said he came into training camp as 3rd man in or 3rd man up. You had Boquist and then Mitchell. And if anybody else went down and created an open roster spot, he was going to play. And from my understanding, before he even came in or signed, remember, Zadorov wasn't here, and he was basically promised a shot to play. So at that time, it was looking like both Mitchell and Kalanick were going to get into the lineup. Bodan was going to be behind them, obviously, and even Regula. But they were probably the 2 odd men out, with Mitchell and Kalanick probably being the 2 guys. Well, and then the Zadorov trade happened, and that roster spot went away. Well, now, we've had Seabrook still out, and we've had all of these injuries and all of these COVID tests. And now Bodan's out. So, you're telling me that the guy that was one of the most highly sought after free agents as a rookie, one of the best power play quarterbacks in college hockey last year, and has leadership qualities. They don't just give out C's in college to anybody. Couldn't get into 1 game, not 1 game in these first 10, when you've had Boquist play like shit. You've had Bodan's that been out now, I think, for 2 games with COVID. Seabrook's been out the whole season. You could have even have sat, as horrible as it might sound, you could even have sat Mitchell a game. And I think even worse than that, if you're Wyatt Kalanick, you've been sitting in the stands this entire time. Now, me and Joe talked about you're going to have the Rockford Ice Hogs season starts pretty quickly, pretty soon. And that training camp has been going on, as far as I'm aware, for at least a week now. If you're Wyatt Kalanick, and at this point, most likely, they're not going to play you, at least in the NHL, you have, to me, go up to Jeremy Colleton and just go, hey, I don't know where you view me in your future, but if you're not going to play me, please send me down to Rockford so I can get to know the coaching staff, so I can get to know the players, find out where I fit in down there, and start playing in some games. Because I haven't even played since March, since my college season ended. I haven't been playing. It's been almost a year for a competitive game. Please send me to Rockford if you're not going to play me, so I can go down there and I can develop my game. I can learn, I can progress, and maybe I can prove to somebody else that they need to come in and trade for me if you don't view me as a part of your future team. This is insane. Absolutely insane what they've been doing with this kid. For a team that's supposed to be developing young players, and I'm not just talking, when I say that, you're not just developing players at the NHL level. You're developing them throughout the organization. Why he is sitting in the stands is beyond me. And to even muddle this up even further, you go out and you sign this Bowie guy from Detroit simply to expose him to the draft. Well, why didn't you just call him up? He needs to play 1 game. Why didn't you call him up and get him in one of these games over the weekend and then be done with it? And other than that, you just called up Anton Lindholm from Rockford to the taxi squad, who's another defenseman. You're you view Kalanick so poorly, apparently, that you called up a guy who probably most teams would not claim on waivers to your taxi squad from Rockford. Why? I don't know. So I guess to end this kind of rant, this has been brewing with me for a while. I just don't know what Bowman or Colleton are doing with this kid, because it's doing him and them no favors. Him sitting in the stands for 3 weeks now has done nobody any favors. He could have been, for the last week, down in Rockford training with them, figuring out how he fits in, and getting ready for their season to start this coming week. It is just mind-boggling to me that he has not gotten into a game yet, especially with his pedigree. So with that, I think that's going to wrap up this show. So again, thanks for humoring me with this rant, but I had to go on it because I just don't know what they're doing with this kid, and it's just been bugging the shit out of me. And I don't think it's fair. I don't think it's fair to him, and it's not fair to them either. They're just not doing anything that makes any sort of sense. So, with that, everybody, thanks for listening in again. The Blackhawks tonight picked up a 3-1 victory over the Columbus Blue Jackets, improving their record to 3-4-3 on the year. We will be back for their next game against the Carolina Hurricanes. And until then, stay safe, stay healthy, and we'll see you soon and talk to you soon. Go Hawks.